and today is March the 5th, and I'm speaking with Sean Mendes, who is in Malawi. Hi, Sean. Good to see you again.
Good afternoon here. Good morning there.
What I would like to discuss this time, we haven't spoken for some while here, is the appearance of disconnection or discord between the United States and Africa, particularly South Africa. Do you see the political discord creating any trouble in the travel market?
Honestly, I don't think we've seen anything quite yet. The U.S. market to South Africa, inbound tourism in particular, has really exploded over the last few years. Since COVID, we've seen an increase in U.S. carriers, launching new routes to Cape Town and Johannesburg. We've seen an increase in traffic on those routes, especially during the Christmas and the southern summer, northern winter season. So I think that has continued to be strong even since this administration was elected and came into office. We're not seeing airlines looking at pulling out. It seems to be a bit of a wait and see right now. I think a lot of what people in South Africa are looking at is the relationship between the US and most of sub-Saharan Africa, to be honest, is not really one of trade like it is with Europe or Canada and Mexico, to cite a few that are in the news right now. It's been largely a case of inbound tourism, which I don't think is really going to be affected much by administration policies, and one of aid. And I think on the aid front, that's where, especially in terms of HIV prevention and ARVs and things like that, I think that's where South Africa and a lot of other African countries are feeling an impact from this new administration policies, but I don't think it's had an impact yet, and I don't really see it'll have a major impact based on where it currently stands in terms of affecting anything really related to aviation between the US and most African countries.
That's encouraging, because who needs more disruption? In terms of the market, I noticed that TAG in Angola took delivery of their first 787 recently. Airplane with a long gestation. Started out supposed to be going to Mongolia. Then it was repainted in Riyadh colors. I actually saw it at the Dubai Air Show. And now it's living in Angola, Luanda.
TAG is an interesting airline. They always have big plans, and there's always some sort of flux that happens between when the plan is written and the plan is executed. I think there's never been a management team at TAG that has actually placed an order for an aircraft and still been around to take delivery of this aircraft. And that's true of of this 777 as well. When it was ordered by
787.
Eduardo. Yeah, the 787, sorry. When it was ordered by Eduardo's regime back then, and then, everybody from that regime has exited and a new regime has come in now to manage TAG. I think the most important thing about TAG, though, is, Angola has its core markets. These markets are places that there's always traffic to and from Angola. That's Portugal, Brazil, South Africa. And their current long-haul fleet is aging. I mean, they're 20-year-old. In fact, 19 and 20-year-old 777s, is the backbone of their long-haul fleets. Those aircraft were due for renewal anyway, so I don't really see this particular 787 or the other three that I think they've got 4 totally on order, 2 787-9s and 2 787-10s. But I don't really see this as being particularly revolutionary in terms of them, using capabilities to open up new routes or whatever. I think this is just going to be more of a replacement for their existing, aging 777 fleet, and it'll go into service over there. This, as you mentioned, it's got a checkered history. It was initially intended for Mongolia, then it went to Riyadh there as a demo aircraft, then it was used as airshow demonstrator, and then just before TAG took delivery, they did a sale-leaseback agreement with AirCap as well. So this little plane has changed hands and ownership quite a few times before it's taken its first revenue flight.
So what's interesting is that if you're saying the focus here is just basically replacement, the capabilities of the -9, which are pretty special, that doesn't offer TAG anything that they really could, I suppose, exploit?
I don't think they would. If you look in terms of where the major markets are from Angola, as I mentioned, the big three markets are Portugal, Brazil, and South Africa. And after that, the potential market that TAG has tried before, they used to run to China via Dubai, and it was a pretty miserable failure back then. They lost heaps of money. Theoretically, a 7879 low density could do nonstop from Luanda into China. I'm not convinced that that's what, in all the noises TAG has made, that's not been a market that they've really identified as something they're keen to look at again. So I think that might be the only real new market that that the 7879 opens up for them, that their existing 777 fleet struggled to do at proper payload. And given the fact that they've tried that market before with the 777 and not been successful in it, I don't expect to see that. Maybe with the 787-10, coming in to backfill these, where the nines will probably start off in in the Portugal and Brazil flights, and then maybe the 10 will go into those and the 9 could be used further afield. But I don't see anything happening with TAG in the short term. Maybe a couple of years from now, once they've taken all 4 of those aircraft, we might see something different. But it's, as you mentioned, this is a hand-me-down aircraft, and I believe between the 4 aircraft, they're going to be 3 different interior configurations in terms of seats, and some have got premium economy, some don't, and it's very much a hand-me-down kind of situation rather than a clear new strategic direction for TAG, despite the new management team, that has been in place now for a few months, directing how these are going to be deployed.
Okay. And of course, no conversation about the African airlines market would be complete without talking about Ethiopian. They've been very busy.
ET is always busy. I mean, literally, you could go from week to week and say what's new with Ethiopia, and there's always some news. But yes, Ethiopian has been busy with deliveries of aircraft. Since the 1st of December, they've taken delivery, I think, of 3 A350-1000s, 1 777-300ER, and 2 787 Maxes. So basically, a plane a week over the last 8 weeks, give or take. The Maxes, one is within both the Maxes they've taken actually are whitetails as well. They were originally intended for Ural Airlines in Russia, and obviously those were never delivered. So Ethiopian's taken them up now. One is currently in service with Ethiopian, and the second one is due to go to their subsidiary in Togo, Sky Airlines. So they've got that there, and of course the 350s are currently deployed daily on their Washington Dulles route from Addis. So anyone who's flying to Africa can experience ET's brand new A350-1000 if you fly out of Dulles. In addition to that, they've come out with most of their summer schedule right now. They've got new flights to Hyderabad in India coming out. They've got a new destination of Porto in Portugal, which will be run as a tag from their Madrid operations. They've increased their Manchester services to daily. And the big rumor, of course, from the North American perspective is, which their chief commercial officer and others have mentioned, is the likelihood that they will announce Minneapolis as their next North American gateway to start this summer. Minneapolis has a huge market specifically to the Horn of Africa area. So, Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Djibouti, and with that market, they will have the ability to offer one stop to a lot of secondary markets, not just the Mogadishus or Nairobis, where a lot of network carriers fly to, but also to the Garoues and Bosassos and Hargeisas and stuff, which are not easily accessible through network carriers that also serve the United States. So I think it would be smart. Minneapolis is on the edge of what they can actually operate nonstop, one-way nonstop, at least nonstop from the United States into Addis, nonstop, both from a schedule and range perspective. So it makes sense, and I would not be surprised to see that announced sometime within the next few weeks for a launch in the middle of this summer, in time for the for the peak season and the school holidays.
One last thing I wanted to talk to you about, Sean, is the discovery of Africa by the U.S. airlines. This is very interesting.
It is interesting. It's something that we saw it happening in the post-COVID time. prior to that, U.S. airlines have just looked at selected pockets in Africa. But I think in the post-COVID era, U.S. airlines are beginning to see Africa as a counter-cyclical peak season. The tourist peaks in Africa tend to be in winter, which is when their traditional bread and butter transatlantic to Europe markets are down. And consequently, we've seen services added into South Africa, as we mentioned. Both United and Delta have really invested heavily in South Africa, opening up Johannesburg, additional flights to Cape Town, and so forth. But now we're seeing West Africa and also to a little extent North Africa and Morocco coming into the picture with the U.S. carriers. We've seen just last week, Delta has announced a second daily flight to Accra over the winter peak. So they will, in addition to their daily A330-900 running from JFK to Accra, they're going to be running a second daily A330-900 from Atlanta to Accra from 1st December to 15th of January. And I think this is really reflective of the trend, especially among young African Americans who've made what they call Detty December, or basically a plan to spend their December vacations in Ghana and Nigeria in particular. And there's all sorts of music festivals and, tourist stuff, and they visit national parks and, historical heritage sites and stuff like that. And, on the Ghana and Nigeria end, we've actually seen this happening since about 2018, 2019. I think now it has become more evident to the U.S. carriers as well, and they're now putting in the additional capacity to cater to this market. And I think that's been an interesting trend. The Europeans have been doing it for a while. They've been putting in seasonal capacity into sun destinations rather than transatlantic destinations. And I think the U.S. carriers are now beginning to see that Africa is becoming a mainstream tourism market, not just a safari kind of tourism market, but a mainstream tourism market, which they can market just like they market, Europe in the summer, Africa in the winter becomes something that they can push out to the mainstream. So it's an interesting trend, and I expect to see, we've already seen what's going to happen winter 2025 with Delta's increase of service. I expect United will do something similar in the Ghana and Nigeria markets. And I expect we'll probably see even more of this, maybe for a longer season or even more flights coming in, for 2026 and beyond.
Fascinating. Really, it's amazing that every time we chat, there's a lot of action.
There's never a dull day in African aviation.
Wonderful, Sean. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Addison.